bootlickers. He also states that the Nobel Peace Prize have a pro-Western bias. He said that the Nobel Peace Prize only goes to those, I quote, blacks who have accommodated themselves to Western world outlook and served its interests. So you're not getting a peace prize unless you accommodate yourself to the, when he says West, that means white folks' interests. Then he said it's a problem because the Nobel Peace Prize defines peace on their terms, on white people's terms. So you could have the world starving, you could have the world aflame, but if the white economy and white interests are represented, who cares who's suffering? So Obama can get a Nobel Peace Prize while bombing the non-white world. That's an example, but we'll get to him a little later. Then he also said the Nobel Peace Prize is a problem because the African psyche, as a result of colonization, has developed a pathological longing for European validation. So, I mean, he's talking about colonized Africans, but I'd also say the formerly enslaved African diaspora also has a pathological longing for European validation. And finally, he said it imposed cultural servitude. When I say finally, that's me. I mean, he said a lot more. You got to go read the book. Like I said, he wrote 2 chapters on the on how if you're a revolutionary, if you're a Pan-Africanist, if you're conscious and you see a black person get that prize, you need to give them the side eye. And he gave some examples. And I looked up some examples myself. So not all these examples are in the book. But in 1950, the first black man to get the Nobel Peace Prize was Ralph Bunche. And what did that Negro do? He negotiated peace between Israel and its Arab neighbors. And that's why he went over to solve while Africa was still colonized, while black people were still under Jim Crow, where the Caribbean still had a plantation servitude imperialist economy. Africans in Latin America, Central America, and South America were still in virtual slavery. All over the world, black people suffering under colonization or Jim Crow. But he goes to the Middle East to make peace. And white folks were like, gave him the pass. Then there was another guy, Albert John, forget me on the name again, Lutuli. Albert John Lutuli, Luthuli. He got the Nobel Prize in 1960. So the first member of the African diaspora to get the Nobel Prize was Ralph Bunche. The first one to get it, a continental Africa, a brother born in the motherland. He got it in 1960 because he was basically a non-violent anti-apartheid activist. And he opposed the establishment of the Umkhonto we Sizwe, which means the spear, or tip of the spear. He was actually Mandela's opposition. Back when Mandela was an armed militant, he opposed using violence to liberate South Africa. He thought that the savages who were mutilating and murdering our people and raping our land, the white minority in Tanzania, could be peacefully convinced to give liberation. Wangari, thank you. So he got the prize for opposing armed guerrilla action against the whites in South Africa. Martin Luther King, I ain't got to talk, got it in 1964. Desmond Tutu got it in 89, I think. And of course, Desmond Tutu, the Uncle Tom with the Truth and Reconciliation. I can't say, I don't want to say Desmond Tutu's name too often because I'm a spit. I can't stand that man. He's an Anglican minister, first of all, an African Anglican. What the blood clot. And then on top of that, he felt that the people who spent generations murdering, mutilating, raping, and robbing Africa should just have to come forth and confess their crimes, and that could be the end of it. Nelson Mandela, same thing. Betrayer, went from he went to jail a militant and came out an Uncle Tom. Obama got it in 2009. Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, one of the first black female head of state in decolonized Africa. She got the Nobel Peace Prize in 2011. And what is her most notable accomplishment? She was the first African leader to open the doors and roll out the red carpet for AFRICOM. And she petitioned AFRICOM because AFRICOM has its base in Germany. So they're really organizing military maneuvers and actions and oversight of the African continent from Germany. A U.S. Military in a German headquarters operating on African soil. She wanted AFRICOM and the U.S. to establish a headquarters and command center in Sierra Leone. Toni Morrison, who got the Nobel Peace Prize for Literature in '93, said that Bill Clinton, at the time he was mass incarcerating and advancing the crack deconstruction of the black community, she said he was a black president because he ate fast food and was raised by a single mother. So she said Bill Clinton was actually the first black president. And her weird books with bestiality books and all that weird stuff in those books, I don't know why y'all like the book so much. I mean, I read when I was assigned, because I probably wouldn't have read it on my own, but I was in a literature class and I was assigned Beloved. And I'm like, oh, I finally get to read this. I've heard so much. And I'm like, what is this crap? And my wife, who is a literature teacher, who has her undergrad in English and literature, I came and said, you know what, is there something wrong with me? And she's like, no, the book is trash. And I'm like, why is the book so popular? She's like, don't ask me. Maybe because I asked Oprah, but the book is trash. But anyway, she got the Nobel Peace Prize. So most of these black folks who got the Nobel Peace Prize are scum of the earth, and most of the black organizations are scum of the earth. So I think that kind of drives home. But all I'm saying is I'm down for criticizing and critiquing and breaking down Black Lives Matter for better or for worse, but you better do it from the left. My problem with Black Lives Matter is not that it's funded by insidious Jews and has an insidious unspoken agenda. My problem with Black Lives Matter is that it's not revolutionary, it's not Pan-Africanist, it is repeating many of the old dead mistakes that we should have already moved beyond. I actually respect that they made sure the movement was decentralized. I think our movement should be decentralized, but their objectives and their goals and their operation methods don't stand up. And the fact that they're eligible, they have been nominated and seriously considered for the Nobel Peace Prize, and given the history of who white people deem worthy of their acknowledgement, that should be something. And there have been people like Jean-Paul Sartre, who, when he was nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize, he's like, take that prize and shove it. Now, there is another prize called the Right Livelihood Award, which is the alternate Nobel Prize, where real radicals, real progressive, real liberation individuals and organizations. So if they were nominated for the right livelihood, that would give BLM more credibility in my sight. But because they have been nominated and are a serious contender for the award, I say whatever they tell us to do, we should consider doing the opposite. Because obviously, whatever Black Lives Matter is doing, the empire loves it. The empire loves it. So now, if you are a socialist, if you are a communist, if you are a humane, decent person, you probably want to log off. And I know John and Q4 like stop telling people to log off this shit.